Okay, we're going to be in Genesis 21. Thank you to Chris. Is Chris here? He might be running a few minutes behind. Chris, I know, did a great job in Genesis 20, talking about, if you weren't here last week, talking about Abraham doing the same thing again. Y'all ever done the same thing again? It's a bit of a theme. If you're a human being, you tend to do the same thing again. In social psychology, there's a phrase, it's called normalization. All things move towards normalization. Why is that, by the way? Why do all things move towards normalization? It's comfortable. That's exactly what it is. All systems seek to move towards a place of equilibrium. So all energy states, unless acted upon by an outside force, i.e. pain, or so, you tend to go back to old ways, old patterns, because it's what the body knows, it's what the mind knows, it's what the wiring has always done. And so things normalize, and the Christian life is about normalizing a different kind of life. I remember one day I was talking to my son Cooper. I was going to drive to Houston to go take him to dinner. So every once in a while I'll do like a leadership lesson with him. He doesn't stand a chance. He's got to go through this all the time. And I said, Coop, let me give you a math problem. I said, it's 250 miles from my door to your door. If I come to see you tomorrow, and for 1 hour, I drive 90 miles an hour, just for 1 hour of the drive, how long will it take me to get to your house? And he's like, 250 miles, 90 miles for an hour, okay, minus the 91. And he starts kind of thinking through it, and he's like, you can't solve the problem, Dad. I said, what do you mean you can't solve the problem? He goes, there's not enough information. I said, well, what do you need? He goes, well, how fast you going the rest of the time? And I go, oh, that matters, doesn't it? I said, I could be pulling over at Buc-ee's. I could pull over at 3 Chick-fil-A's along the way, get some gas. I said, so here's the lesson, Cooper. I said, the length of time it takes me, the amount of time it takes me to get from my house to your house is not based on my top speed. It's based on my average speed. And that's how life works. Life is not based on your top speed. You're not judged on your best. You're not judged on your best day. You're not judged on your best month. You're not judged on your best year. Life turns out based on our average speed. And normalization is always fighting to get us to lower our speed. As believers, as we seek to follow Christ and follow Him and lay aside the encumbrances of this world, those are the things that want to drag our speed down so that we're not pursuing God with our full hearts, right? And so really, as men, as Christians, as leaders, our goal is to raise our average speed, right? And it's not easy. It's a challenge every day. All right, Paul calls it the war waging within. Y'all ever felt that? You feel it this week, by the way? I'm just kind of curious. Did you feel the war waging within at all this week? Because that's what it is. If it's a real battle, if it's a fight, you're going to feel the war, right? Unless you throw the towel in. So it's just you work through it. Paul says, work out your salvation, right? With fear and trembling. It's like with awesomeness, like with joy, that God's worth it. He's amazing. He's awesome. Work it out. Okay, it's work. Ephesians 2. A lot of us might remember the verses, Ephesians 2, 8 and 9. Remember that verse? How's that go? For it is what? Through faith. It is God's gift. It's not of your works that no man should boast, right? Well, it's the verses before that are even better. Right? That's the conclusion, which is nice. Here are the verses that lead up to it. Verse 1, and you were dead. How about that one? And you were dead in what? In your trespasses and sins, in which you previously walked according to the ways of this world, according to the ruler of the power of the air, the spirit now working in the disobedient. We too all previously lived among them in our fleshly desires, carrying out the inclinations of our flesh and thoughts. And we were by nature children under wrath, as the others were also. Next 2 words, best 2 words in your New Testament. What are they? But God, who is rich in mercy because of his great love that he had for us, made us alive with Christ, even though we were dead in our trespasses. Isn't that great? And then you get to the great verses. For it is by grace. It is a gift. You've been saved by grace through faith, not of your works. Thanks be to God. So you can have Abram struggle. He can lie. He can risk the covenant promise again. This covenant promise that's, let's not lighten this. This is the covenant promise that's meant for the world. This wasn't just for Abraham. This wasn't just for you to have a little kid, Abraham. This is a promise I'm giving to you because you, through this child, you're meant to bless all the nations of the world. You are jeopardizing the world through what you just did with Abimelech. And he does it again. Can you walk with God? Let me ask, is it possible to walk with Jesus for 3 years, see the miracles, watch the teaching, watch the preaching, watch a perfect life, and still deny him 3 times at the end of his ministry? Is it possible to do that? What do you think? Do you think someone could do that? See, this is what we battle. It's this war waging within us that's there. In Old Testament, New Testament, Paul makes it clear. Yes, we have a new nature, but that old nature has not gone away. Paul makes it clear that old nature is there, and we have to battle this thing. So we can go to Genesis 21 now. And we finally get to the fulfillment of the promise. Finally. Up until chapter 20, it's amazing when you look at a snapshot of humanity. How is humanity done from Genesis 3 all the way to Genesis 20? Chris, how is humanity done so far?
Doesn't seem like it's done well.
We're not managing life too well. We've got murder, we've got pride, idolatry, we've got lying, we've got sex, you've got abuse, you've got everything you can imagine spreading through mankind. And yet God says there's a promise. I'm going to hold my promise, Abraham. I promise you, there's a child coming, and all the world's going to be blessed through this child. Finally, Abraham turns 100 years old. It's time for the promise. How long has he waited for this promise now? 25 years. You guys ever waited 25 years for something? Just in all seriousness, it doesn't have to be spiritual. Anybody ever waited 25 years for something and it finally happened? Yeah? Anyone want to share? 25 years and it finally happened? Hey, yeah, what do you got, Mike?
In 2016, the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. It started in 1969.
You've been a Cubs fan since... They started in 1969?
No, the Cubs started in 19...
Oh, I mean the last pennant that won, yeah. So that would be, how many years is that?
108. It's 108 years, actually, since they won the World Series.
Okay, wow.
But in my time frame, from 1969 on to 2016.
Man, I bet there was a little celebrating in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. I think people thought it was a sign of the end times. It's like when the Rangers won the pennant, right? You knew that Jesus was coming back. John, you got one?
End times.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, perhaps today, right, John? Perhaps today. Or as I always say to John, no, Lord, do not. There's too many left. There's too many left. We both have the right heart, don't we, John?
That's right.
That's right. Who else? Grady, did you have one?
I just said the Cowboys are still waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not ruin the study, Grady, all right? There's only so much God can do, all right? Rangers, Cubs, yes. Cowboys, not sure about that one. Yeah. Man, when you're waiting decades for one specific thing, and at times in your heart thinking, I just don't think this is ever going to happen, and then it happens. What a thing. I've told you guys, for me, it was the difference between 1988, when my father walked away, like verbally, overtly from religion and faith in God, became an atheist, and it was 2014, after years. What is that? 12 and 14 is 26. 26 years until my father finally, through this mustard seed of faith, consented to Jesus in his final hours. 26 years. And I can tell you, there were prayers that were covered in tears for me at times. There were long nights, long arguments with my dad, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, outside on that patio. My dad's smoking a cigarette, we're debating the Bible and God and Jesus, and we're going at it, and it is father and son, and my brother would be out there, and we'd be tag teaming Dad, right? Just praying for his soul. He's a great man, a great father, but just wanted him to consent to give his heart to Jesus. And on October 31st, 2014, at 11:30 p.m., right, he squeezes the hand twice to confirm he wants Jesus in his life. I gotta believe that was all that God needed. Lord, remember me when we pass from this place. I tell you what? Today. That's all I ask, is just the smallest of seed, the smallest of faith. Today you will be with me in prayer. He is a God of faithfulness. Doesn't matter how far you've gone, what we've done. Listen, all of us in this room have messed up. Some of us have really messed up, right? I know that. And God is faithful. He just continues to bring us back, right? He delivers. He's the great deliverer. Verse 1, it's a long intro. We could probably pray right there and be a Good Friday. Verse 1, the Lord came, look at this, to Sarah, as he had said. And the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Interesting phraseology there. What would you expect in that verse? Who had he continued to come to for the promise? Abraham. To Abraham. Now all of a sudden it's time to deliver. And what does the text say? He comes to Sarah, right? One I love, anybody who's ever tried to argue that the Bible is kind of misogynistic and anti-woman and patriarchal and blah, blah, blah and all that kind of stuff, man, you haven't read it. There's too many areas of the scriptures where women in a day that were not elevated are elevated. And here he is right here. He goes to Sarah. And you're going to see in a minute, he's going to be gentle and merciful to Hagar, right? This is a book for all men and women. And he comes to Sarah and he says, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. How old is she, by the way? If he's 100, how old is Sarah? 90. Can you imagine? And it's about to say she nursed too. That's called rejuvenation. Right? She took her collagen. Verse 2. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age. I mean, I can't even imagine. Just imagine that moment for a second. She's 90 years old, and all of a sudden, she discovers she's pregnant. Like, how would she know that? How long into the pregnancy would that have taken? Well, I would love to know in that moment. How would she know at that moment? It says, at the appointed time, God had told him. Verse 3, Abraham named his son who was born to him, the one Sarah, there it is again, the one Sarah bore to him, Isaac. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And I love this verse. Sarah said, God has made me laugh. Did she laugh, by the way? Can you remember a time when Sarah laughed? When did she laugh?
At the promise.
At the original promise. How old was she then? See, 90 minus 25, what was she?
65.
65. She was laughing at 65. Scoffed. That's what it is. Kind of like a scoff. Yeah. Yeah, right. God's not going to do. What's this dream you had? Who's this God you talked to, Abraham? I'm going to have a child. Are you out of your mind? She laughs. And God has the last laugh. God has made me laugh. And everyone who hears will laugh with me. She also said, who would have told Abraham that Sarah would, golly, I think this is just as big of a miracle, nurse children. Doesn't even need a nursemaid. Sarah is going to do the job herself. See, the reason this is so amazing is because God is the God who can take dead things and bring life to them. He can take that which is dead and he can restore it to new life. Did you know that? He can take those things in our lives at any point in our life. Doesn't matter if you're 65, 90, 25. At any point in your life, He can take that which is dead. And if by faith you believe and trust Him, God can take that which is dead and bring life out of it. It's a beautiful teaching of the Scriptures. It's never too late. We're never too far gone. Yet I have borne a son from Him in His old age. Verse 8, the child grew and was weaned. Most babies are weaned somewhere between 2 to 3 years after birth. And look what happens. And Abraham held a great feast on the day Isaac was weaned. Why do you think Abraham would have a feast at the weaning of his child? You know, infant mortality back then was very high. Children died. Many, many children died. There was no guarantee that child would make it to the years of being weaned off of their mother. So when that child made it to 2 or 3 and got past the infancy years, when a child was so fragile and so delicate and susceptible to sickness and disease back then, it was a time of celebration. I think for Abraham, he wanted to make sure he was out of the woods with Isaac, that he would survive, because so many children didn't. And secondly, he was celebrating this indeed is the promised child. It hasn't died in its infancy, and this is God's fulfillment. And he throws a big old party. Look what happens. Abraham held this great feast on the day Isaac was weaned, but Sarah saw the son mocking, the one Hagar, the Egyptian, had borne to Abraham. It's interesting language. I mean, this is about 16 years later. Ishmael is about 16 years old. He might be 17. He was, 13, 14 years old whenever God was silent, whenever it says Abraham went into Hagar. Hagar had a child, and it was Ishmael. And then the next scene, 14 years later, Ishmael is now, he's 14 years old. This is 2 to 3 years after that. So he's a teenager. He's 16, 17 years old, right? And you're looking at him, and the text talks about him almost like he's a little child. He's not. He's 16, 17 years old. Look what he does. Sarah sees the son mocking, the one Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham. What is peculiar about that language? She's lived with Hagar. She has lived with Ishmael for 16, 17 years. What does she call him?
The son.
The son. The son of Hagar. What has Sarah in her heart done? When Isaac was born, you can almost see what happened. When Isaac was born, what happened in the heart of Sarah?
I have a child.
I finally have a child. That is not him. See, that was Sarah's own stuff. I think this is one of the most human texts that you see the wrestlings of Sarah here. She's got her son, and she also now sees a competition for the birthright between the two of them. And she says, the one Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham. Verse 10, so she said to Abraham, drive out this slave with her son, for the son of this slave will not be a co-heir with my son Isaac. Once again, you're looking at this text, man. This is a woman calling out a powerful man and telling him, you're going to do this. Right? That whole notion of women having no voice in the past, I'm not sure exactly where that comes from, but it doesn't come from here. And the notion of the passive man, that's not a 21st century phenomenon, by the way. Right? Abraham just gives into this. Look what it says. This was very distressing to Abraham because of his son. Why was it distressing?
Because he was his son.
He was his son. He loved Ishmael. There's nothing bad about Ishmael. There's nothing here about Ishmael that's bad. He wasn't a bad kid at all. He's the innocent one, right? And here is Sarah who's saying, this son of yours that you've had now for 16, 17 years, I want you to get rid of him. Send him out to the wilderness with that mother of his. He's about to lose 2 sons. He's about to lose Ishmael here. In the next chapter, you're going to get to the pinnacle of testing Abraham's faith, and he's going to about to give up his other son. Yeah, Chris?
Well, I think it's interesting too,
Yeah.
the connection here, because the word mocking is the word laughing as well. It's the word jesting, it's the word laughing. It's the same word that Sarah did in chapter 18 when she laughed.
Yeah.
She mocked God. And that's why there's the irony here as well, is that she gets the promise of a son, and she scoffs, she laughs,
Yeah.
she mocks. And then later on, here we see she's naming the kid after the scoffing, and now you see
The son.
Ishmael
Same
scoffing
thing.
and laughing
That's right.
with Isaac in this party, right?
That's exactly right.
Interesting whole. It's almost like I don't want to say it's a hypocrisy on her part, but it is kind of an interesting how now she's got a bone to pick because he's doing the scoffing towards her son.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just a very interesting kind of setup.
It's also, interestingly enough, the same word that's used of the people in Sodom when they laughed. They scoffed. It's the same word. So this can be used for a legitimate laughter, like, ha, 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 Tony, you're so funny. Okay? It can be that, but it can also be used as a scoffing, mocking. And that's the sense here. Sarah sees Ishmael laughing, and she sees it as a mocking, a scoffing. Right? We don't know for sure, but it can be interpreted that way. And many people do see it as that was the trigger point for Sarah, that she saw something in the heart of Ishmael that was jealous, that he had always heard the story that mom and Sarah, dad and Sarah would have a child, and they never could. And I'm the promised one. And daddy's probably always told me, I'm the one. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here's this baby born, and now a feast is thrown for the one. Does this sound like another story, by the way? Prodigal son. The younger child, a feast is thrown because he has arrived. He has come home and he has arrived. And the older son, not too happy, right? Same thing here. That's right. Chris, I think that's a great point. There's a real play here in this idea of scoffing and laughing.
Walter, do you think were confusing and conflicting for Ishmael growing up?
Conflicting in terms of what's going on here, I thought.
Here's not bad, but a mother, they don't live together. They don't, it was just could have been kind of weird for him.
I think it might have been weird, Spunky. Obviously we were limited on data, but I do think that probably what Ishmael became, the setup between Hagar and Sarah and Abraham was a pretty normal setup in that day. I don't think Ishmael probably had any real issues with watching the way that setup worked. If anything, he might have seen a resentment, a bitterness that Sarah had towards his mother, right? And so he probably lived in that kind of context, that kind of environment at that point. But I think when you had the birth of Isaac, I can definitely see Ishmael's confusion. After all those years believing that he would be the one, I have no doubt Abraham probably even told him. Because of God's silence and God did not take Ishmael away from him, that probably he thought the plan worked. And all of a sudden this child is born, and it's a miracle to Ishmael. It might be the very first miracle that Ishmael has ever seen in his life of God himself allowing Sarah to become pregnant. A lot of confusion going on here. What's this all mean? So maybe he had his own teenage envy. Who knows? Who knows? So you see now verse 9, but God said to Abraham, do not be distressed about the boy, about your slave, which is also considered his wife. Whatever Sarah says to you, listen to her, because your offspring will be traced through Isaac. And I think what is God doing here? What's he providing Abraham? He's giving him two things. He's giving him, one, perspective. Let's not forget what this is all about, right? The promise. And number two, he's giving him some comfort. What's the comfort? Your son's going to be okay. Ishmael is going to be okay. He's in my hands, not in your hands. And yet think about Abraham. You're about to lose your son, 16, 17-year-old son. And then he says, I will make a nation of the slave's son because he is your offspring. 14, early in the morning, Abraham got up, took bread and a water skin, put them on Hagar's shoulders, and sent her and the boy away. She left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Look at this. When the water in the skin was gone, she left the boy under one of the bushes and went and sat at a distance, about a bow shot away, for she said, I can't bear to watch the boy die. While she at a distance, she wept loudly. What did Abraham do? I mean, he caused this scenario. What did he do? He's sending Hagar and his son into the wilderness. Beersheba is a desert environment. It is rough. You have to have provisions. What does he send them with? A water skin and some bread. There you go. Just head that way. Head towards Egypt. That's where you're from. And he sends them on their way. What's Abram thinking? Why do you think Abraham only gives them a water skin and some bread and doesn't give them provisions or even some servants to go with them to escort them out in safety and to make sure they have plenty of provision? What do you think is going on here? What's that, Grady?
It was a one-way ticket.
It's a one-way ticket to die. I mean, he's basically sending them out to die. It's a very confusing text, to be honest with you. He already is distressed by the fact that he has to do this. So now he's going to do it, and now he's going to give them minimal means to survive out in the wilderness. I got to believe that there is a play going on here between Sarah and Abraham. You will not give them much. You will not give them much. I think in Sarah's own mind, she would not have cared at all if they perished in the desert. I think overly, we make Sarah something more than she is. I think Sarah was a vessel used by God for the promise. She endured a lot. She suffered a lot. No doubt about it. We don't want to take that away from her. But there was really deep problems, I think, inside of Sarah that she had to endure. There was a pain and an anger and a resentment in her heart. And Abraham listens to her. So Hagar goes out. It's interesting, like here's this child. You would think that the child would be stronger than the mother. But you never know in the wilderness. Wilderness can do all kinds of things to you, can't it? The desert, you have no idea how it's going to affect the body. All of a sudden she sees Ishmael, and now he's weak. She doesn't know if he's going to make it. She sets him under kind of this tree, this bush. But then she does something perplexing. What does she do? She goes a bow shot away and leaves him. Because why? She can't bear what? To watch him die. I would rather let him die alone than to die in my arms. Okay? Total distress going on here. This is a jacked up situation, if you can put it that way. This is messed up, this whole thing. Verse 17, God hearing the boy crying, which is, by the way, what Ishmael means, God hears. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the boy crying from the place where he is." Once again, what does God do? in a time of greatest need, when you have no other resources, you've got nothing left, what happens? He shows up. Right? How many times has that happened? Where you just wonder, I've got no more calls to make. I've got no one else I know who to reach out to. I got no more breakfasts I can have. I got nothing. And somehow God opens a way, makes a way, right? And takes care of us. Yeah.
So, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, but I think it's interesting how, so we all understand that Abraham took it into his own hands with Hagar to have Ishmael, right?
Yep.
He didn't trust God, he did it on his own, right? We get that. Now here we are again in a situation where he finally does have a son, right? And now he's not trusting God. He's listening to his wife. He's sitting them out. And I almost feel like there's I don't want to call it a guilt, but it's like you just painted a beautiful picture from the word. Like a wineskin and bread, that's all you get. It's almost like he is done messing with this whole thing and he's in his flesh again. And rather than trust God, because can God, in the midst of this scenario, have an illegitimate son and a true son grow up in a family and still cause the Christ to come from the true son and the slave son? Can he still affect what Paul says in Galatians to come true?
Yeah.
Of course he can, right? And as a matter of fact, if we play that scenario out, had Ishmael grown up right next to Isaac, would we be in the world we live in today? With the divisions across the Middle East and all of that, with Ishmael's people and Isaac's people and all that we've dealt with for so many millennia, right? And so it's interesting how he once again, I believe, I don't think a man in here would go, yeah, that was a good thing that he sent Hagar out. That was good, right? That was righteous. Because it's almost done in a sneaky way. Like you said, had he sent her with all this stuff to take care of her and to go, we could maybe justify, but he doesn't. He sends her with nothing to go die.
Right.
And God once again intervenes, and I think for his own name's sake.
Yeah.
He's intervening here in a way to cover his own name, because his prophet is not doing, once again, what he's supposed to do.
I think that scenario is perfectly legitimate. I think it very well could be the case. The only thing, if I'm going to be charitable at all to Abraham on this scene, okay, if I'm going to give the most charitable interpretation, here's the other side. It's the only answer I can come up with. And that is that God told Abraham Ishmael is going to be okay and he's going to be a great nation. And maybe by this point, Abraham has grown in his faith and trust in God so much that he knows he can just send them out because God's promised Ishmael is going to be okay. He's got nothing to worry about. God will make provision. That's the only thing I got. So I can eat, huh?
It says, listen to your wife.
He says, listen, yes. He tells you to listen to your wives. Did you hear that? Listen to your wives. Regardless of what they say, your wives are all correct. Exactly. So I do think, Chris, you see what I'm saying on that one?
100%.
So if I want to be charitable and I go, look, here's one thing we know, all right? And Chris, I'm really glad you kind of came back to that point. If there's one theme that we have all over the weeks have been talking about with Abraham's life, is how God is getting him ready for what? For the next chapter. The chapter now where you're going to really test his faith. Genesis chapter 22, the offering of Isaac. So along the way, what have we seen with regards to Abraham's faith? If we want to point to a trajectory, what are we seeing? Growth. A strengthening, a growth, a trusting, right? Of celebrating, a worshiping Abraham of God. And so, again, to the charitable interpretation, maybe right here, it is a small glimmer of the degree of faith that Abraham has, that God is going to take care of his son, and he doesn't need me to take care of him. Maybe. Or it's just old, Abram again, just in his own flesh, go on, just y'all get out of here. Y'all have been a headache for me. I got to listen to this woman over here every day. She's driving me crazy. Yeah, get out of here. Right? That could be the case too. And maybe God saw mercy on Abraham because he knew what you just did again was not right. And I'm going to have to come in and make provision for what you should have made provision for. Will God do that, by the way? Will God make provision for people that you should have made provision for and they're still taken care of? Can that happen? Yes, every day. Yes, Spunky. Or John, who was it?
I had something in mind.
John. Oh.
365 times in the Bible it says fear not.
Hmm.
This is the first time to a woman God said fear not.
First time to a woman, is it?
Yeah, the first time was Abraham as he left Sodom for,
Yeah.
but it's amazing. Fear not.
It's a command for all people. That's right. Trust God, right? He's got it. So now look where we are. Where are we? Let's go back to 17. He heard the boy crying. What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying from the place where he is. Get up, help the boy up, and grasp his hand, for I will make him a great nation. Verse 19, then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well. I don't believe that God suddenly created a well right there. I think the well was always there. She just, in her own despair, her own grief, the trauma of being in the wilderness, I think she just didn't see the well. Suddenly he opens her eyes and she sees right in front of her, there's the answer to there's the well. Right? There's your provision right there. You guys ever had that, by the way, where you thought your provision, you thought your answer was somewhere out there? You keep looking out there, only to find out really the provision was right there in front of you the whole time, right? That's kind of how this is. There's a story, I think it's a true story, but it was told by Earl Nightingale years ago. You guys ever heard of Earl Nightingale back in the day? Yeah, he was one of the early guys, and he wrote a book. Yeah, he told a story called Acres of Diamonds. It's a famous story. And it was a story out of South Africa of this guy who, when they discovered that South Africa was a land that had the highest deposits of diamonds. It was like the 1849 gold rush. Everybody began to rush to South Africa. They wanted to go get their diamonds. And there was a man who sold everything he had. Literally, he sold his property, sold everything he had because he was going to spend the rest of his life and he was going to go find diamonds to have real wealth. And he ends up dying. He dies in poverty. He lost everything. And it turned out that the property that he sold on his own property was the largest deposit of diamonds in all of South Africa. And he sold what he had to go find something else, and he was right on top of it the whole time. Isn't that crazy? It's called Acres of Diamonds. It's great. If it's not true, it ought to be. But he tells the story as if it's the discovery of the largest diamond mine in all of South Africa. Why don't you chat GPT that? Tell if it's true, somebody. Is Acres of Diamonds true? I haven't read that story for years. Verse 22. I'm sorry, 20. God was with the boy. Gosh, underline that. What should you say? If you were to write something next to that, where God was with the boy, what would you write next to that? God is what? God is always with us. God is merciful. God is faithful. God is loving. Right? God loves even those outside the promise. Right? God loves everyone. For God so loved the world. God was with the boy and he grew. He settled in the wilderness and became an archer. He settled in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt because Hagar was Egyptian. So there's probably across that area of Paran, you've got trade routes. Somehow she found him a wife and he began to settle there. And that would be the beginning, as many of you know, Ishmael, that would be the beginning of the Arab people. All the Arab people go back to Ishmael. You know, the story, if you ever looked at the story from a Muslim's perspective, they're going to see that of Abraham's and Isaac's disobedience, that God took the promise from them and gave it to Ishmael because of their disobedience. And so that Ishmael truly was and that this is just a story written from a Jewish perspective to take the birthright from Ishmael. Ishmael had the birthright the entire time. And they threw this in at the end to twist it, to steal the birthright. And this is where you get the heart of the entire division between those two faiths. It's the original birthright. By the way, it does say, or it does not say, not that it's meant to say it, but it does, when it talks about Abraham, it gives Abraham the promise of land. When it talks about Ishmael, all it says is he'll be a great nation. It says nothing about the promise of land, right, for him. So the real blessings of land, seed, nation, being a great name, those were exclusively given to Abraham, which would then only be fulfilled how? What's that? Well, through Christ. Eventually, when Christ comes, the name of Abraham is great, that he would be a blessing to all the nations of the earth, right? And that now, depending on your eschatology, depending on your theology of Israel and all that, you can make the argument that God will continue to focus on the nation, the land of Israel, even to this day, right? Which you can make a strong case for that. Or you can make the case that all the earth is the Lord's, and that when Christ came, now the fulfillment is that all of the earth is God's covenant land, right? And the gospel goes out to it. So either way, there's faithful believers that go both directions. Whatever you want to think about. Verse 22. At that time, Abimelech, God, we got 7 minutes, accompanied by Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Swear to me by God here and now that you will not break an agreement with me or with my children and descendants. As I have been loyal to you, so you will be loyal to me and to the country where you are a resident alien. A pagan is going to Abraham, the very patriarch of God, and what is he saying to him? Promise me you won't break your word. Does he have reason to say this, by the way? What do you think? He's looking at him, he's like, man, you got some asterisks on your life. You're not the most trustworthy guy. You have put me in a predicament. You almost had me killed, right? And he goes to him and he gets the rebuke of a pagan saying, I need to make sure you're going to be a man of your word. How humiliating is that? The one who talks with God, the one who the covenant of God is going to go through, and the pagan goes to him and says, you're not really trustworthy. I want to make sure you're going to keep your end of the bargain, right? This is something we all have to strive to be with the world. The last thing you want is for anyone in the world to look at you and question your honesty or your integrity as a believer, because they're going to look at that and your claim of knowing God and they're going to go, what? Right? Is that a problem today, by the way? Of course it is. Abraham doesn't take offense to it. Abraham said, I swear it. But Abraham complained to Abimelech because of the well that Abimelech's servants had seized. Why would they seize the well? It's in the middle of a desert. You think that's a high priority? You think that's an important asset in the desert? Abimelech's servants seized the well. Abimelech replies, I don't know who did this thing. You didn't report anything to me, so I hadn't heard anything about it until today. Abraham, look how smart he is. Abraham took flocks and herds and gave them to Abimelech. And the two of them made a covenant. Why does Abraham do that? He didn't have to. Abimelech just wanted his word. What does Abraham do?
Give him his word plus flocks.
Yeah, gives him his word plus. And he says, listen, I am a man of whatever it takes to get you to believe and trust me, I'm willing to do. So he gives him a gift. And he says, he took the flocks, verse 27, and gave them to Abimelech. The two of them made a covenant. Abraham separated 7 ewe lambs from the flock. Abimelech said to Abraham, why have you separated these 7 ewe lambs? He replied, you were to accept the 7 ewe lambs from me so that this act will serve as my witness that I dug this well. I don't want anything for free. I don't want anyone to say that somehow I roped you into this deal, that I took this well from you. He wants everyone to know what? This well did not come from a pagan. It wasn't a gift. This is something that I secured. So one, it's a gift to Abimelech, but number two, it's payment to secure that no one thinks that he somehow took this well back. He cares about his reputation. Therefore, the place was called Beersheba, because it was there that the two of them swore an oath. After they made a covenant at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, left and returned to the land of the Philistines. Verse 33. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, El Olam. It's the first time you see the name of God, the everlasting God. Why does he plant a tamarisk tree? He is making a statement, and what is that? It is a tree that will last. It's almost a symbol of permanence. I'm going to plant a tree here because this place is God's gift to me. It's a fulfillment of God's promise. He is the everlasting God. Whatever promises He's made in the past, He will always keep, right? And it's just a symbol of God's faithfulness. And Abraham lived as an alien in the land of the Philistines for many days. Takeaways of the chapter. Give me a takeaway. If you guys looked at this chapter, give me one takeaway that you see that you would say, this is clearly something for us.
Listen to your wife.
Don't listen to how she says it, just listen to what she says. How about that one? Because she may not say it in the way that's easy to hear sometimes, but there's probably some wisdom and instincts in here that you ought to listen to, right? Okay, we'll go with that one, Spunky. Listen to your wives. Give me another one.
God's timing is not our timing.
God's timing is not our timing. Gosh, man, is that a tough lesson or what, Grady?
It's a real tough.
That is a hard lesson to learn. But look at us. We're still sitting here. All those hard days, all those prayers that we wondered if they'd ever get answered, all those moments if we wondered how we're going to get through this, and we're still sitting here. God's faithful. Give me another one.
You just said it. God's faithful.
Okay? God is faithful. What else?
God's timing is not always our timing.
Okay? It's almost never our timing.
Never our timing, yeah.
Yeah, not almost, probably never our timing. You know, in God's time, there is, we'll end on this. You know, in nature, there's a word in toxicology. It's the word hormesis. Hormesis is the process by which when you inject a system with a toxin, the system strengthens because of its adaptation to the toxin to overcome the toxin and strengthen. This is true, for instance, in all of our biological systems, the muscular system. When you work out and stress the body, in the body's recovery, what do the muscles do? They come back stronger. The heart, the respiratory system comes back stronger when you go push yourself and you run. All through nature, hormesis exists. It's this idea of systems getting stronger from the stressors. If the stressors don't exist, what happens to those systems? They get weak. They get fragile. They become very vulnerable. They atrophy, exactly. And God, if I could put it this way, is a hormetic God. God is a God that will make you wait much longer than you want to wait. And He will allow life to happen in a way that will stretch you and stress you and press you and push you in such a way that He's waiting for us to grow. Because growth almost always can only come through stress and tension and pressure and disruption. Do you know that? Heath, did you know that growth can only come from disruption?
I found that out.
Did you find that out?
That which does not kill us.
Makes you stronger. Thank you, Nietzsche. That's right. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. That's hormesis. So whatever that is, the prayer ought to be not, oh Lord, why me? Or oh Lord, how long? But how about, oh Lord, what is it in me that continues to need to be developed and grown? Because there's obviously something that you want to grow in my life. And this pressure, this stress, this negativity, this problem, whatever this is, there's something in me that still hasn't grown up. It's still undeveloped. What is it, O Lord? Show me what that is. And God will take whatever he has to take to make that thing grow up. Do you know that? He'll take whatever he has to take to make it grow up. That's what's happening. Chapter 22, God's going to take one really big thing from Abraham to make him grow up. He's going to ask him, do you trust me? Let's pray.